You're a failure.
And that's okay. Hi, I'm Dan.
And I'm Alicia. And we're
failures
too.
We take a walk back through people's failures and relive the mistakes they made so we all can have more clarity in how to be a better human.
In this episode, our guest is a 5-time International Sales Award winner, had 3 seasons of his travel video series air on Amazon Video after traveling the world full-time for 27 months, this is my dream, published a nationally celebrated photography book, and most recently started his own technology consultancy. But, this wouldn't be the 2020 perspective without a failure, so buckle up because this is a juicy one. Matt Javitt founded and started a clothing line, IDGAF Clothing. Whether you realize it or not, you've seen IDGAF before, and if you don't know what it means, just go ahead and Google it now. That's right, y'all. We spoke with the original founder of IDGAF Clothing. Even though he had celebrities like Shaquille O'Neal wearing his brand, Matt walks us through his IDGAF failure to grow the brand as big as its potential. This story is one that inspires us to take a leap of faith and ultimately a risk to reach your full potential. Welcome to the 2020 perspective, Matt Javitt.
Yeah, so I'll jump into it. So, military kid growing up, Navy brat, went to 8 schools, 3 high schools, and but luckily I had basketball. I had sports. I'm 6'5", 240 now. I'm a big guy, but at that time, basketball was the thing that attracted me. So I had a Division I scholarship. Finished up at North Carolina Greensboro as an academic All-American. Transitioned to get my. I was a graduate assistant. I played a little bit of. Pro ball, but not enough to really talk about. I got paid to play, so that makes me a professional player, I guess. But then I went back and got a graduate degree down in Texas, coaching junior college basketball. And during that time, I had the idea back when I was a junior in college. I made a hat. I went to a kiosk in the mall in North Carolina, and I made a hat that was IDGAF, IDGAF. And now I even got the hat.
Cool.
That's the original hat. I still kept it. I put my initials on the back because I was like kind of like a b-boy hooper kid.
It's a blue cap. It's got some white stencil lettering in italics. Looks real professional.
Thank you. Yeah. And so this was 97. So I wore the hat around college for 2 years, and everybody would talk about it, and they loved it. And once they figured out what it meant, they thought it was hilarious, and then they dug it. I mean, fast forward now, and then I got in my graduate, as I was getting my MBA, my brother was like, "Dude, you got to do something with this clothing. You have to do something with IDGAF." And I was just like, I really think it could be something. So I made 50 shirts, 50 hats, and sold them fast. People loved it. And that's when I was like, okay, maybe I do have something. So after I got my MBA, instead of continuing the coaching path that I had this calling to be a coach, but I thought this was like a big opportunity, it had huge potential, I thought. So after I got my MBA, I left the coaching career, came back to Indianapolis because my brother had moved here. My family had moved to Indianapolis at the time, and we started from zero to build a clothing line.
So, all right, you left the coaching. You're like, we're making clothing. What was the vision of what you wanted to achieve? Do you remember what was the inspiration? What was the dream that you were reaching for?
It was honestly get rich quick, probably.
Get rich quick.
I mean,
I like that.
you see. At the time, like FUBU was now this is late '90s, so FUBU would just come out, and it was killing it. There was some of the Affliction wear and some of the UFC brands were out there. I think No Fear had kind of ran its course, but it was still kind of out there, and there was another one that a lot of fighters wore, but the response I was getting is what really drew me to say, okay, I'm going to make this happen.
Yeah.
Because it was such a wide variety of people that liked it. And so that's why I thought it had a chance, and it did. It flourished. I'll get into that a little bit. But so I come back to Indianapolis. I've got an MBA, and my first thought was, so I got to hustle and do these clothes, but I needed to make money. So I went to, I got a job at Fridays as a server because I knew you could wear clothes. So I would wear, because the servers always wear hats. Because they got to wear all your gear. If you know Fridays at all, you got to wear all the flare. You got to wear the pins and all that crazy stuff, but you can wear a hat. So I would wear a hat during my shift. And then if people would ask them, I would say, well, actually, I got some in the car. And then I would run to the car, sell it to them real quick, and continue on. So but the management was really cool about it until like the upper management, until it got like really popular and then everybody was wearing it. And then one of the senior guys came walking and was like, hey, what's that mean? And they told him, and they were like, oh God, okay, yeah, you guys can't wear that anymore. So it killed that thing. But then about a year into it, I became a bartender at the local bar. And what I was doing was getting on the bartending gig really helped me because I was bartending at night and I was hustling clothes during the day. So we ended up getting into 25 stores. A good bunch of those were in the Indiana area, and then we had a couple in Maryland, a couple of Florida through contacts. But everything was consignment based. So I was essentially saying, "Hey, put on your shelves. I know it's going to sell, and we'll keep refurbing you as you go." And then it did. It continued on, and then I had. So this is back in when you're thinking about 2000 to 2003. Folks today don't understand how hard it was to get in front of people. That you had no, like with LinkedIn and all this social media, and you can actually you can tweet to Mark Cuban and he might reply to you. None of that stuff existed, but it was good for guys like me because I was really good at finding either the snail mail address or finding a way to get a phone number. So through that hustle, I could get in front of people. So I made contacts into the MTV wardrobe people. So I ended up getting Carson Daly to wear on his show.
TRL?
Yeah. On TRL. Yeah, on TRL. And then I had two other people wore the hats because once you get into the wardrobe, it's game over. If you can get a friend in wardrobe,
you've cracked the influencer game.
Absolutely. Well, so you send them some stuff and say, hey, look, here's some for you, but if also you can get some to the other people, that'd be amazing. So they're handing it out to the people because they're always looking for new clothes anyway. Then I got, I had a lot of these different stories. Like I got to the Jackass crew. So all those guys, because that's totally up to Jackass. I ended up meeting Steve-O. Steve-O came here on one of his tours, Lollapalooza tour. I went into his travel and into his bus where he was like, it's the IDGAF guy. And then I had a chance to come into his bus and all this. I had Shaquille O'Neal. So at the time, This is what I'm most proud of at the time, and this is why I love Shaquille O'Neal so much. Is at the time, Shaq was the most marketable person on the planet. I would say on the planet. The guy was making more money than anybody, and any brand would have dreamed to have him wear his stuff. And through a connection, I got him. I sent him a box out to LA. He got it, and my connection said he really likes it. So he ended up giving me tickets to a game in Milwaukee. The first time I met him. I had these huge, massive 6X shirts, these huge T-shirts. They were 6X. And so I made them for him, and he gave me tickets to the game. I met him after the game. I gave him the T-shirts. The next night, I worked at the bar. The next night, my phone starts blowing up, and my buddies were like, dude, I think Shaq's wearing one of your shirts. And sure enough, it was on ESPN, him and Kobe walking into a game, he's wearing my shirt. So all these things are happening. I'm like, this is gonna blow up. And we had a website, but it was, you had search back then, kind of, sorta, but it wasn't like it is today, where if you don't know where to get something, people don't know. Like 20 years ago, if you didn't know how to get it, you just wouldn't really know how to get it.
Right.
And that was my biggest issue was like, okay, people are seeing it, but they can't get it. So I actually, Shaq did that once, and then another time I met him here in Indianapolis, he wore a hoodie to All-Star Weekend, and then so this time I was smart. I was like, okay, he's going to get an interview here, so I put the IDGAF on his collarbone,
nice,
on the hoodie,
right in the camera.
So again, All-Star Weekend, he takes my hoodie. So I see him on a Tuesday. That Friday he's an All-Star Weekend. He takes my hoodie, and he's got the IDGAF there. And then the coolest thing was a year after. So I hadn't.
It keeps
I hadn't
getting
seen,
better.
Yeah.
Well, it's great.
better.
So a year after that, I hadn't seen Shaq in a year. And a year after that, I get one of those random phone calls from a buddy like, dude, I think Shaq's wearing a IDGAF beanie right now. And I turn it on. He's got a huge chinchilla coat on, and he's throwing snowballs at him outside Milwaukee Stadium. And he had one of my beanies on. And I hadn't seen him in a year. So he gets all the free stuff and all the paid sponsorships that he gets. He still grabbed and took one of my beanies. So I'm like, okay, this thing. So all these years go by.
This is
and I'm just
okay, Matt. Can I pause you for a second?
Yeah,
This is a failure
yeah.
podcast, right? So I'm hearing like
it's
win-
coming.
win
No,
after
it,
win.
but the thing is I'm still bartending. And I actually transition careers because my wife walks into the bar one night. I fall in love instantly, and then I transition to the mortgage industry for 3 years. I'm still running it, still hoping and like trying, but so during that process, obviously I had it trademarked, and I was going through all these different mini wins, but I wasn't making any money at it. I was actually spending a lot of money at it because you do consignment with a lot of stores, and a lot of stores are not going to pay you at a certain period of time. So you might have a lot of inventory in their store, and then they change owners, and the new owner's like, well, that wasn't me, dude. I bought the store with everything in it. I don't owe you any money. You're like, wait a minute, this last guy just so we got in a bind where we were just having failures, and I wasn't good at understanding, like, okay, you got to get to the distributors. Like all the stuff that I know now, 20 years later, if I would have did it then, I think there would have been a lot different outcome at that time, because it had the chance to be extremely hot. Even like here in Indianapolis, we had the 2007 Indianapolis Colts run. I befriended a couple of guys, Dominic Rhodes. And then he had influence on many people within the locker room. Dominic Rhodes had an amazing Super Bowl run, and the Colts ended up winning the Super Bowl that year. And during the parade, Dominic Rhodes and the Edge James, the two running backs, they both wore the IDGAF beanies, and there was no other non-NFL affiliated clothing in the entire on anybody on the Colts team. And they're at the podium giving their speeches with the IDGAF. And so at this point, I'm like, oh my God, this is the break. So I've been grinding this thing for 7 years. I'm like, okay, finally. So I'm calling like Hat World. I'm calling these different companies saying, look, guys, this is here in Indianapolis. People want this product. Just put it in 2 or 3 stores. And like, with the meaning, and we want to go get behind that meaning. And I just was so confused at. I could not get over that final hump.
What was that kind of like? How did you square that with yourself? You're making these calls, all the evidence is there in your eyes, but you're still meeting resistance. Like, how did you feel about this?
I'll tell you, in hindsight, and this is so important when you have a dream or you're working on something. I always had a job. I always had money coming in, and I don't think that I was solely reliant on this thing really breaking. Then I think that if I was, and that's why they talk about like these true entrepreneurs that were gutting it out in their mom and dad's basement, and they were making it happen, and then they had the big thing that happened for them. I didn't have that enough struggle, that maybe I didn't focus on enough. So I have full ownership on the idea that if I would have done a few different things and worked relationships a few different ways, now that I've gone through a successful sales career and I've learned these things over time, that if I would have had those same skills in my early 20s, that maybe I would have got a different break earlier, because I truly believe it would have been a domino effect if I would have gotten a few stores at the time, because I know it would have sold, because I was selling it out of my house. Yeah. I had guys on widespread what's it called, widespread panic.
Yeah. I
had guys that were like funding their own, these panic guys that traveled the country.
Yeah.
I had guys coming to my house saying, Matt, I'm gonna buy $3,000 worth of stuff, because they would turn 3,000 into like 12,000, because they would just travel and sell this stuff out of their backs of their cars. So I knew it could sell, but I just didn't. I did so many things wrong, and that's the failure. And I guess one of the lessons is, I didn't rely on other people enough. I had, the thing that can get in your way, especially when you're trying to achieve big things, is your ego. And I think I probably had that ego that I wanted to be the reason that this thing happened. And so I didn't rely on enough people. Like the whole distribution component of clothing, I didn't realize later that if you get with a few people around the country that really handle these stores, and they have major influence on a lot of these stores around the country, you work with a few of them and give them the money they deserve because they're sales professionals, then it can keep going. But it was the whole like 100% ownership. And it was me and my brother, but I was doing the most of the work around it. But it was that I wanted it to be us that made it popular. And when I should have just leaned on my network and just said, okay, who can help me get this thing out there? Because obviously I can't do it myself. And that was the thing is once you understand that you can, like I own it, but if I would have just like released some of that and just said, okay, no matter what comes of this thing, because I really just wanted it to get out there, and I still feel the same way. So full circle, I just, because we ended up selling it off. We kept a bit of it and let somebody else, because I was like, okay, I can't do this. I obviously I failed at this. Hopefully somebody else can do it. And we had a girl, she took it. She ended up claiming she ran it. It was funny because she was on The Bachelor and stuff, and so she had a good run with it, decent run. But I got it back now. I got my baby back now. So I got IDGAF again. So I don't know. Like I tell my buddies, like, because I've gone through. You guys know more of my bigger story of some of the things that I've done in my life, but I don't care about. That's what I tell my buddies. Like I'll probably screw this thing up again, but I really don't care. I don't even care because, and that's what's so funny about failure. And this is the thing that people get caught up on is. And I've been blessed. This is part of my story is I've been blessed. I had a chance to travel the world full time for 27 months to 35 countries. And once you get a chance to see like how most of the world is living, and these things that we think are so important are like they're nothing. Yeah. There's people working their tail off today so tomorrow is okay. And we, just because we're blessed to be born in the soil, if you're listening to this somewhere on a podcast, you're probably born in a place or you live in a place that has abundance. Yeah. And the problems that we have and the things that we create around, oh my God, I can't believe I can't accomplish this, is really nothing. And it's we think that these failures are just like scars, and it's like you have no idea what the scars are around the world that these people are trying to overcome. This is nothing. So nobody cares about your little life, and it's one of those things where like everything matters, like because it's your life. So everything in your life is truly important, but nothing matters as well.
So I want to loop back to something you said earlier and connect it to what you're talking about today. You're saying part of the reason that you think that maybe you failed getting this business really up and running and breaking out is that you didn't struggle enough.
Yeah. Is
that something that you've kind of, after your world journeys and experiencing the rest of the world, do you think that's kind of a new perspective that you have today, that you've seen people struggle and say, wow, I could have done a lot more, I didn't step up enough? Or are you trying to reconcile what you did with the success you're seeing today?
So I actually just got chills when you said that, because I never thought about it. But when Nikki and I made our trip around the world, we intentionally never came home for 27 months. And I knew that was a big part of our journey, because I wanted to be completely out of our comfort zone for a long period of time. Because if we would have, because all of our friends and family were saying, oh, but you're going to come home and stop in real quick and then keep going. And I was like, no, we're going to just go, and then we're going to come back in 2 years. And they couldn't get it. But for me, I knew why, because I wanted to be super uncomfortable. And if you've got a warm shower waiting for you in 3 or 4 months, it's going to change your perspective during those 3 or 4 months. But because we did it I'm so happy the way we did it, because we did the $10 stays. We did a ton of cold showers. We did the bucket showers. We did everything to stretch our money, but also to be a part of these communities around the world, to learn so much. So it probably was it was probably that learning that I did from that failure with IDGAF, because I knew that if I would have struggled a little bit more, it would have been better. Maybe that was the reason that I knew that we couldn't make it easier on ourselves by coming home, that we had to go through the struggles. And I say struggles, I traveled the world, but it really, there are peaks and valleys of, of travel.
I've been to Peru and had some rough nights.
Yeah.
Definitely.
And that's the thing is like, and you can learn so much about it during those harder times on the road. So you nailed it, Dan. That I probably did learn from that, and I didn't realize it until just now.
I think like I love hearing this correlation between your business struggle and like what you learned traveling and how that gave you a different lens to look at when you were traveling. I know when, like you said, the peaks and the valleys, whenever I was traveling for that 1 year, I mean, I forgot what I called them, maybe like the frustrating days, the days when you can't get anywhere that you're trying to go. You can't buy the bus ticket. You can't get wherever. You can't communicate with people. It's like, okay, today was a failure. It was just a flat out failure. I didn't see anything. I didn't learn anything. I'm really aggravated. And now I'm going to take a cold shower and sleep in a random, guest house somewhere with mosquito netting around me. And like tomorrow will be a better day. And maybe it's like a good thing to do to translate that into our everyday failures. Because a lot of people have a different perspective. Obviously, this is what the podcast is about, on failure. And typically the people that we talk to, like yourself, they view failures as something that's always going to happen. Like, I'm going to fail again tomorrow. Like you were talking about IDGAF, like I'm probably going to take it back. I'll make some more mistakes. I'll fail again, but it's never the final destination. And I can't help but think that the larger group of people out there are really fearing failure as like, this is the destination. If I fail at this, then where do I go from there?
Absolutely. And it's Nikki and I, we talk about it, and as I was telling her about this podcast, we reflect on Sarah Blakely. I don't know if you guys know Sarah Blakely, founder of Spanx.
Big fan.
She's amazing, but she talks about how when she was at the dinner table, her father would say, "What'd you fail at today?" And it's huge. So those are the things that we try to ingrain in our nephews and nieces. The idea of like doing random stuff so you feel awkward. I'll make up a scavenger list for my nephew, and I'll say, okay, this is the things we're gonna do. And like, you have to tell a joke to a stranger, high five people, stuff like that. Like, so I know that he's gonna be super awkward, and it's gonna make him feel weird. But when he's done, he's gonna be like, oh my God, that wasn't that bad. And so if you keep understanding, like, all the things you think are horrible, nobody cares. You're gonna get through it. It's gonna be okay. And again, the travel thing. Once you understand what like true struggle is, and people that are in these really tough scenarios that couldn't imagine the opportunities that we have. That's what that idea of, we get to do these things, and we get to fail at these things, where there's a good portion of this planet that we're on doesn't even have the chance to do what we're dreaming of. They don't even understand the dreams that we can dream, and the power of our imagination, because they can't think about outside of their four walls, because they never been taught to even get beyond that.
So I would love to zoom into the moment that you made the decision to hand off this brand, because that sounds like that's almost a reckoning of all the work that you did beforehand, and saying, this is the line of which I do not cross, and therefore I'm going to hand this off. Like, can you bring us to that moment where you're like, all right, it's time to say goodbye?
Yeah, it was brutal. So it was something that I always had hope that one phone call, because I pitched a lot of different people on, hey, if towards the end of my run, I was pitching celebrities and just saying, hey, if you get on board here, we'll give you a big percentage, we'll make this thing go. But my brother and I were arguing a bunch. And for me, that was the reason I stepped out. I told him, I said, it's not worth our brotherhood. We're best of friends. And so for me, I was like, and he had a couple of guys in town that wanted to buy in and take it to the next level. But we didn't have all the same vision. So I just said, okay, I'll step out. you guys do your thing. And again, it was one of those things where I had this other stuff that was really starting to churn with my technology career. So it was easier decision. With if I was struggling, maybe it would have different decision. Because but I said okay, go with it. And then they ran, and they struggled as well. Clothing is really difficult, and that's a cop-out excuse. But clothing, if Paris Hilton's line failed, then I'm like, okay, you know what I mean? It's really hard to be successful at clothing, but there's still a niche out there. I mean, you can see the number of IDGAF shirts that are currently on a lot of different websites. That mean they're trademark infringement, but they're out there. They're on Amazon, they're on Redbubble, they're on all these different websites. But yeah, it's hard. It's a hard thing to do, is to sew clothes.
And I mean, I want to commend you that you recognize that the relationship with your brother was more important than that potential call for that breakout hit. I mean, that takes,
For sure.
it takes courage, but it also takes a real self-awareness that the little nitpicky conversations you have with a friend or a partner start becoming the norm. And
For sure.
And recognizing that is hard for everyone. It's hard to recognize that.
Yeah, and that was also a life lesson, because working with family and friends, especially if you get certain personalities. I know I'm not in the work environment, probably not the easiest person to work with at times, because I'm pretty demanding. So I think that was a lesson to understand that didn't work. So as my wife and I now, we're looking at things from a business standpoint on partnerships and stuff like that. I know how to approach it, knowing that who I am and how I look at things is different than other people. So it's helped me in that regard as well, and then something I'm really trying to improve on, because it's not easy. Because now now as an entrepreneur again, with my consulting business, it's you're always trying to learn and get better and work on your weaknesses to work with other people, and especially now when you're trying to attract talent, and you want to do right by everybody, and that's what when I worked for the man, I was for 9 years with a big company. I was really good at that, because I wasn't the boss. I was a sales guy. So you didn't have as many responsibilities. So you didn't have to make tough decisions. But doing it all on your own, it gets a little bit more difficult, because then you got to make the harder conversation. You got to have the harder conversations that you don't want to have. So all of it is all these things that we go after. They're just life lessons building on the next.
So we like to talk about projecting yourself into the future and anticipating some future failures. What might be a future failure with IDGAF?
Oh, that's a good one. I really don't like to focus on the negative, so this is a hard one for me.
It's a potential learning. It's potential thing.
Yeah, it is. But I don't typically dream about the negative aspects of what that possibility could be. But I think that the obstacles that are out there is clothing's difficult. With it being, now that it's a popular term that a lot of the younger generation uses on Instagram and Twitter, cutting through that, I guess that noise to have a brand that can stick out, because it's probably overused more so than anything, and maybe not dreaming big enough, because I'm in a place now in my life where I just want to see it do something. So I'm probably my goals are going to be much lower than get rich quick as it was the first time. So I won't dream as big this time, but I'll look to get into different markets. And I've really thought, I think that what's cool about America is, and this is what we saw, we traveled, America doesn't do much. We don't do much. We have technology and we have culture. And so in the culture around the world is insanity, because they watch our TV shows, they listen to our music, they love our stars, and they wear what we wear as well. I saw this in places that I could not understand why they were so attracted to our culture. Yeah. But so I've been thinking, what if I just take this thing just focus on other regions of the world rather than trying to make it an American thing. Because if they know it's an American slang word, maybe they'll like it even more. So those are some of the things I'm looking at as well. So I don't know. I'm going to start real small though, because when you fail big like that, I just wanted to get some momentum. Mm-hmm. And it's not even like a failure. It was an awesome trip. I got to meet so many awesome people, but it didn't take off. I mean, it didn't go like it should have. So hopefully this time I can get some momentum with it.
Or if it doesn't, then we can have you back on the podcast and talk about how you failed again.
Round two.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Round two, yeah.
Hopefully not, but just back up just in case. No, I keep going back to what you were saying about the struggle. Maybe the struggle wasn't big enough or hard enough for you. And that I'm feeling that it resonates with me a lot. I don't know, Dan, if that resonates with you.
It resonates in a different way. So
Yeah.
I'm curious what your thoughts are, Matt, on this. Is that I had the same mindset for my own business for the past, I don't know, like 9 months, that I need to struggle hard. And if I'm not struggling hard, then I'm not part of this hustle culture, entrepreneurship world. And it was really only in the past month or so that I understood that stressing myself out to such a degree was actually inhibiting my performance. And it was inhibiting my relationships, and it was inhibiting my happiness and my sleep. I was so focused on struggling. And I realized if I let go a little bit more, I was able to do more. I was able to feel more satisfied. And I'm curious, Alicia, are you hearing this and be like, struggle's good or struggle's bad?
So I'm thinking I'm not struggling hard enough. I feel like what maybe like similar to what Matt said, like I have this cush, what you refer to as the golden handcuffs. I've got the 401k, I've got the big corporate job, the health benefits, all the things, but I have this, yearning for a more solopreneur type journey. And I'm really scared to step into it. And I think what you said is so funny, Matt, because I talked to a coach yesterday who recommended doing that same exercise of imagining myself 10 years from now and like paint that future life. And as soon as you can see it and it's crispy clear, you can step into that. And I don't think I've done that yet and put it on paper. And so maybe I'm yearning for something that I haven't really articulated clearly enough to be able to step into. So I'm just kind of hanging on to this safety net. And therefore I'm not getting into like the real struggle of getting to, I don't want to say the final destination, but to where I'm using my purpose more readily. Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely. And some of it is focus as well. So the balance that I had that helped me not struggle was I had something else that was there 8 to 10 hours a day as a job that helped me make money, but also took my focus away from what I was really hoping. It was more of a hope than it was an ambition to make it a reality. So the idea that I had this side, that's the hard thing about side hustles, is they can become hobbies real quick. And if you're not focused into building it into something that's at the level that your dreams are, then you're always going to be partially committed. And that's what I tell people all the time. Like if you got lists of things and you're carrying this baggage of like BS ideas, like I want to learn Italian, I want to write a book. If you got this list of things that are like your goals, and you're thinking about them, and you're not doing them, then that's drawing. It's really it's like you're carrying this bag around that's not going to happen. Just cut it loose. Who cares? You don't got to do those things, but you got to focus on the things that are going to really impact your life in a big way, that you want to make a big impact. Because it's not all. That's the crazy thing about life is, as you see it traveling. In America, we focus on money. This is who we are, and as soon as you understand that everything in this country is about money, it makes it easier. And then, but the rest of the world is not like this. Their balance is way different. So the things that they're focused on might be more about family and that going to the park and enjoying nature and things like that. That's all okay too. So if your goals are different that way, and that's kind of the balance standard you're talking about, is the struggle that I'm talking about is maybe like not having that cushy job and finding ways to be creative to make my money last longer without that great job, or maybe bartending longer, or whatever it was I could have done differently to make the focus more intense with IDGAF. Then maybe something would have happened. But it doesn't have to, it does. You don't have to be eating noodles and not sleep in order to feel passionate about what you're doing. But this imagination thing is huge, because if you can't imagine yourself doing it, it's impossible to live it. You gotta really put yourself out there and see yourself in these places. See yourself as a successful entrepreneur. See yourself working remote or whatever it is those big goals are. Then it can become, because again, I didn't have these things in my early 20s. I didn't understand it as much as clearly as I do today. That's why I'm going at this a second time. I'm a totally different person. Than I was in my 20s, because I got the opportunity from all this different education that I had in my 30s that has just opened up my mind in a powerful way that anything is truly possible. That's the beauty. If you're born on soil that allows you to do things like this, anything's possible. And it's a blessing that we got to take advantage of it, because there's so many people that don't have this opportunity, and they're just they're going day to day because that's the cards they were dealt, to be born in a small town in India with like only their dad's a goat herder, you know what I mean? And so he's going to be a goat herder, and like that's all he can do, and so it doesn't have access to other education. So that's the only life he has the ability to have. And here we are with every bit of abundance necessary and every access of every tool we can ever ask for. Why can't we live out our dreams? And why do we care if people think that we failed at something?
That was, I feel like I need to go out and buy one of his hats. Well, it's his hat again. Now it's brand again. So
I know. I wanted to be like, can I buy one? I mean,
maybe we could put a link up to his if he has an Etsy store or a Shopify or something. I don't know.
yeah,
We'll find
definitely. God, there's so many good things. Well, first of all, we found Matt through just like searching around the internets, and what really drew me personally to him and his, having him on the podcast is, which we talked about a little bit in the episode, but we didn't talk a ton about, is that he and his wife traveled for 2 years straight, like 27 months or something, to like 35 different countries, and they never came home. And they blogged about it and had podcasts about their adventures, and they really got in with the community that they were visiting. And so I really love that. So obviously people...
I know, that's like your little secret dream.
Yeah, that's kind of my dream. And I had a small stint doing that for a year, but that's kind of the initial, draw. And whenever we asked him to be on the show and ask him about the failure, it was something totally different. But it's still like, obviously because it's his life, like tied together. And lessons that happened from his failure kind of like also were somehow like learning lessons in his travels and in his career. So I really liked how, our failures are, speaking of travel, it's like our suitcase that we put, it's like something that we put in our backpack and our suitcase, and we take it with us. And it's not something that, it's not just an event, it's something that we take and we put it in our suitcase and we bring it through other experiences in life. And if we use it properly, we use it as a learning lesson that makes us smarter, and not just this thing that we like put in the shoebox at the bottom of the closet that you never look at. It's something that we take with us.
First thing is, that was beautiful.
Thank you.
The second thing is, I think people have a choice. And I think what Matt did is he took that failure and put it into his suitcase rather than put it into a box and hid it away. And I think that's a choice that a lot of people are faced with. And it's a very scary choice because when you put it into your suitcase, it's usually an ugly failure. Like you did something, you made some decisions, you overestimated, you didn't reflect, you regret. But that process of looking at it, talking about it, reflecting on it, that's how it ends up in your suitcase versus in the box strapped to your back weighing you down. And I think that's a really key piece of Matt's story, but also I think everyone kind of grapples with in their own way around failure.
Yeah. Can I just say that I can't believe he's the guy who started IDGAF, essentially.
I know, how
I
do we
did
get
not
those
know
people?
that until he started telling us this. I had no idea.
Oh, and for all the listeners who are listening to us do this outro, we ask our guests, a little bit of what is the failure, and he just put down the letters, and I was like, okay, so what's the failure? No, he's the guy that was on TRL, the people wearing the hats, and Shaq with the shirts and stuff. So
Yes, I mean,
people always surprise you.
I agree, and that's what I love. And I guess another thing we should tell listeners is they're probably thinking, well, you don't know what the failure is? No, because we like to do our failure stories, our interviews, like straight improv, and it's organic. And so we don't want to know too much before we talk to people about their failure, so that it's like a surprise for all of us. So
yeah. And that's I think
it's like Christmas.
Part of the jazz of doing a podcast, and also the jazz of life, not to get super parable here, is you're not going to always be prepared for your podcast interview or for traveling around the world or for your business dream or for whatever failure. And there's something really beautiful about being present, and there's something you can't capture by preparing and anticipating and doing everything you can to avoid failure. Sometimes you just gotta freaking fail and just walk right into it.
Yeah, you're right. That to me, that's really hard. To walk into a potential failure, what he was saying, what Matt was saying about the struggle not being, he wasn't struggling hard enough, because if when you're really hustling, when you're really hungry, when it's either make this sale or you don't eat kind of thing, you're gonna make the sale. You're gonna find a way to do it. And when you have a safety net, you can't really fully, maybe some do, but there's just not the same level of hunger.
Yeah.
And that to me is speaking of, future failure, projecting yourself into the future, that is my future failure, is never stepping into the potential failure or the potential success, but either way, just not knowing, because the fear of security, which is honestly false security anyway, because are you ever really safe when you're at the grips of the man? No. But not ever stepping into that potential success or potential failure is the failure itself.
Yeah. I want to temper that and give you a little grace here, is that there's a difference between foolhardy failure and being afraid of your potential. Like Matt, when he traveled the world, didn't do so, when he had no money in the bank. They saved up and they made strategic choices and they planned and they tried to mitigate as many massive problems that they could avoid.
Right.
I think there's one piece about doing some preparation, but at some point you'll never be prepared enough if you're afraid and you let fear rule your decisions. And there's only so much prep you can do. And, if you walk off the job with no money in the bank and say, we're going to have to figure it out, things may be really hard, or maybe that opportunity that's just been waiting for you is there. I don't know.
Yeah.
You just got to try at some point.
Right. You're right. You just don't know. I do remember that this has nothing to do with the podcast episode, but I'm going to say it anyway. So
it's our podcast. I do what I want.
So whenever I left my job like a couple years ago to start my startup, which was called Workshop NOLA. And I moved to New Orleans and I tried to start a startup. I had honestly like no clue what I was doing. I can't believe anyone let me do that. I quit a job with a salary and benefits, which was fine. I was going to like move anyway because I just finished my master's and I was like, oh, I'm about to like upskill, right? So like, let me take this chance and move to a new town and start a company. I had no clue what I was doing. I had a big dream, no map, no roadmap. And the stress that had from like, you know, making no money. I was like, I had some savings, but I was teaching workout classes like crazy, kind of like in between the day to like not blow through my savings, and ended up really loving that. And that kind of started a whole other thing for me. But
Whoa. Don't put that as a subtext. It's like, oh, you know, I just did this and discovered a passion that kind of ruled the rest of my life. But NVD, continue.
Well, it is part of my future. I think my future me, like who I'm becoming, is that the movement piece, which I found is so monumental for mindset, you know, like exercise and like all the workout classes. And it also like helped me understand that I liked facilitating and leading, that kind of thing. So yes, you're right. It was for a reason. Like it was the universe being like, hey, try this. But there was, I do remember this like element of stress, like exhaustion, because I was like physically running all over the place, teaching workout classes like multiple times a day, and then also like bootstrapping, trying to figure out how to start a company and like resources and like, you know, raising money, all this stuff at the same time. And it was a level of stress that like I kind of fear. I don't want to go back to feeling like that. And like I felt like I had like I was like juggling like a million things in the air at one time. And if I stepped out of place or if I made a wrong move, everything was going to crash in front of me, you know? Mm-hmm. And I think I'm a little scared of getting back to that kind of feeling again.
Well, that's absolutely fair. And I think that's something that every person who has tried something and failed has, that scar of, I did this thing and there was a part about it that I absolutely hated. But now that you have that realization and you've self-reflected and said, I didn't like the life I was living then, you now can make different choices. And when you start feeling that way, you're more attuned to it and you're more self-aware and self-conscious, and you can move past that obstacle to find the new obstacle to fail at. And that's life.
Yeah. That's
at some
the way
point,
the cookie crumbles.
you find that next failure. Mm-hmm. You're going to find that next failure. I know you will.
Yeah, I'm going to do it. I'm right now, I'm very much in like failure mode. Like it is impending whether I want it to or not. Like it's something, the universe is conspiring right now, which is exciting and scary.
Yeah, I know. Big plans. Something's happening. Something's brewing. I don't know what, but it's going to be for you.
Woohoo!
Thanks to No BS Brass Band for the bangin' show music. Check them out at nobsbrass.com. And if you want to join any of our live shows, follow us on Facebook at the 2020 Perspective. That's 20/20 Perspective. As always, make sure to subscribe on your favorite podcast player so you can get the latest failures delivered right to your ears. And may your failures be spectacular.